stories about people's pets being stolen and sold to laboratories for research. We've heard about notorious kennels that exist out there, but you really can't believe it until you see it, which is why documentaries like this exist. Dealing Dogs, an HBO documentary. We're here with producer Tom Simon, who made this incredible film. Your dogs actually are running around as we speak. But tell me a little bit about this documentary, Dealing Dogs. I watched it. I found it extremely disturbing, but also extremely important for people to see.
Dealing Dogs follows the story of an undercover investigation of one of the most notorious Class B dog dealers in the country. Class B dealers are licensed by the Department of Agriculture to buy dogs from small breeders, from country flea markets, and then to sell them to research labs. This activity is legal. The issue is how the dogs are kept at the kennel. In this particular kennel run by a guy named C.C. Baird, he kept upwards of 600 dogs at a time, often in horrible conditions.
Right.
So he was infiltrated by an investigator who represented the animal rights group Last Chance for Animals.
Right.
And he got a job in this kennel in very rural northeastern Arkansas and worked there for 6 months, and he wore a hidden camera. He documented dogs being shot, dogs being beaten, dogs being denied adequate veterinary care. These are all things that the federal government mandates that a dealer like this should do. The results of the investigation and the ensuing legal case resulted in the largest fine ever levied under the Animal Welfare Act. Combined fines and sanctions to this guy of well over $1 million and put him out of business.
Which is the good part, you know, of the documentary, but hundreds of kennels like his, maybe not as big, exist out there, and like you said, they're legal, but they're not supervised enough because it's not legal to treat the animals inhumanely.
The USDA is supposed to enforce adequate treatment for the dogs. They have something like 100 investigators and literally tens of thousands of facilities, from research labs to breeders to kennels like this to dogs in the entertainment business, that are all supposed to be regulated by these 99 or so investigators, and they can't do it.
What made you interested in doing a documentary like this?
In the course of our R&D phase, we followed a number of different investigators. Some were in research labs, some were in other kinds of facilities, and when we got onto Pete, the pseudonym of the investigator in this film, we realized that because he was after this dealer who had a notorious history, he had already had his license suspended once and then went back into business again. We decided that this was a strong case, and HBO saw a tape of the various investigators and said, go with this guy.
Tell me what your thoughts are on dogs going to veterinaries, hospitals, and research labs.
I've been in a fair number of research labs. I've seen footage from almost every kind of biomedical research, and in general, they're not given humane care.
So it's just as bad as the kennels. Once they leave the kennel, you're
I feel it is, yeah.
You're not necessarily happy that they're leaving the kennel. It's just another terrible situation.
It is.
That undercover work can be pretty dangerous, too. I mean,
Very
you're dealing,
dangerous.
like Pete said, that if they found out while he was there, he thought he would be shot to death.
Because of this kind of undercover work, there's a lot of suspicion and paranoia on the part of people who run kennels like this, people who run puppy mills.
Right.
And they're, you know, he constantly encounters in undercover situations, you know, people talking about, you know, if a PETA guy came in here, we'd kill him. You'll see a sequence in the film where another investigator infiltrated a group of people who basically steal pets and then sell them to C.C. Baird, the dog dealer who ended up busted in the film.
How can people prevent their beloved from being stolen?
I think microchipping is an answer. Actually, Pete carried a scanner with him because he wanted to try to find dogs who were chipped who ended up in here. And there have been chipped dogs that have been found in research labs.
Really?
Yeah, a reputable research lab would certainly want to scan any dog that they purchase. That's probably the best way to prevent your pet from ending up there is by chipping it.
Tell us a little bit about some of the dogs at the end, and you know, it wasn't a terrible ending, actually.
When the place finally got shut down, a rescue group came in to the kennels and ID'd all the dogs, photographed all the dogs, and then placed them in foster homes until they could then be fully adopted out. So there were, at the end of the film, we were able to film about 100 or so dogs that escaped the fate that tens of thousands had before them been consigned to.
How can people help prevent this from going on? Is there anything we can do as citizens?
Well, there are some bills pending in Congress, one called the Pet Safety and Protection Act, which is not moving too fast in Congress, but it basically would much more tightly regulate the acquisition of animals that would end up in research labs.
I would think people should write their congressperson.
They should write their congressperson. They should support organizations like Last Chance for Animals, which is the group that sponsored this investigation, who are trying to put an end to this practice.
Where can people find this extraordinary DVD?
It is sold on the HBO website, hbo.com.
Tom Simon, producer of Dealing Dogs, thank you so much for coming and
Thanks.
sharing one of your many stories.